Hey guys, Ashwin here from Technology Jog, back with another not an unboxing video. So this is a new series that I've started on the channel to bring you one of a kind experience. So basically when you purchase a new phone, you unbox it and you start using the phone for a couple of days. You know, the first 24 to 48 hours, you come across certain things that kind of surprise you because you may not have expected to see those things in the first place. But at the same time, obviously there would also be some things that disappoint you. The first 24 to 48 hour experience, that's the kind of experience that I'm trying to give you through this series of videos. So let's get started. We've got the Galaxy F41. What is F? Like, why did Samsung launch a new series of phones? Basically, I'm not exactly sure what the differentiating factor is. So F for full on, that's what the wallpaper says on the lock screen. Maybe futuristic, fusion, not really sure. Anyway, this confusion part of why this phone exists, I'll try to address it at the end of the video. For now, let me share my experience with this phone so far. I've been using this for about a day and a half. I didn't put my primary SIM inside, so except for phone calls and stuff, I'll share the rest of my experience with you.
And before we begin, a huge shout out to our sponsor, Glazed Ink.
What's special about Glazed Ink is that they have actual 2.5D curved glass along the edges, so the entire screen is covered and protected. No air bubbles or awkward gaps, which you might get from installing any other tempered glass in the market. Glazed Ink also has tempered glasses for a lot of other phones as well, including the Realme 7 Pro, Galaxy M51 and so on. So link in the description. Just make sure you use the promo code TJOG to get 10% discount. So let's start with the design and the build. I kind of like how the phone looks. I mean, this particular color at least. We've got a black and gray gradient. I like it. The seamless transition from gray to black. Also the gradient panel, it looks different from different angles. So in terms of looks, it's fine. But if you look at the bigger picture, I feel it's kind of outdated. I mean, when was the last time you saw a rear fingerprint scanner on a phone? Pretty sure it's been at least 6 months. So that's one thing, and the rear is also plastic. It's kind of cheap and it's also extremely prone to smudges and fingerprints. So not really a fan of this design, but it's not worse than say the M31 or the M21. It's kind of in the same ballpark. In terms of functionality though, I have no problem with this fingerprint scanner because this is actually much faster than Samsung's in-display fingerprint scanners, at least in the same price segment. Even in terms of build, I don't think this phone is great. We've got Gorilla Glass 3 on the front, old version. And of course, like I mentioned before, it has a plastic back, so it's not very reassuring. Anyway, turn to the front and we've got the amazing Super AMOLED display. The resolution is Full HD+, and it also has support for Widevine L1, so you can play full HD videos on streaming apps like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hotstar, and so on. Actually, there is nothing much to test here. It is the exact same display you find on most other Samsung phones in this price segment, 15 to 20K, the M31, the M21, and so on. And while watching, I felt that the audio coming out of the single bottom firing loudspeaker is also pretty decent. Now, Samsung says that this supports Dolby Atmos when you wear headphones, but Dolby Atmos on smartphones is nothing more than a gimmick. Maybe I'll try to make a dedicated video on that. The most disappointing factor here is the chip being used here. It's the 9611, Exynos 9611. I mean, how old is it? Samsung, if you're watching this, how long are you planning to use this chip? It's been over a year. They were using the 9610 before this on previous generation phones, but they are pretty much the same. The 9611 is not a significant improvement over the 9610. Not at all. And if you remember, even in 2019, the Exynos 9610 was already not the best chip in its price segment. There were other phones offering better chips. So I think this is one area that Samsung really needs to put a lot of effort into. They're actually doing a pretty good job when it comes to everything else. They have Super AMOLED, they're introducing higher battery capacity. I mean, Samsung was the first mainstream brand to bring a 6000 mAh battery to a budget phone. I think that's where the trend started. Now phones phones like the Poco X3, the Redmi Note 9 Pro, everything comes with a large battery. And Samsung also introduced ultra-wide angle cameras to the budget phones, and that also became a trend. So the chip is one thing that kind of holds it back. So that's one major feedback. It's still fine for casual use. You know, you're using Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, and for those kind of stuff, it's completely fine. Actually, even Twitter lags on a lot of Samsung phones, and I've noticed the same here as well. Even the setup process was a bit laggy. As you can see here, opening up Play Store takes a lot of time. Sometimes some apps crashed. I couldn't get it on cam, but some apps, including Netflix and PhonePe, crashed when I opened them for the first time. Of course, the initial setup process is always slow on most phones. It's just that on this phone, it's a lot slower. Apart from that, everything seems fine. We've got 6GB RAM, UFS 2.1 storage. There are two variants, one with 64GB storage and the other with 128GB, and there is also a micro SD card, so the storage can be expanded up to 512GB. But do keep in mind, this phone, or rather this chip, is not for gaming. So I tried Call of Duty Mobile, which is actually not as resource intensive as something like PUBG Mobile, but I could still notice some lag while playing. Moving on, it's got a 6000 mAh battery. When I unboxed the phone, I think it was at 63%, and I've been using it for the past one day without a SIM card inside, and I think it's still at 32%, not bad at all, just 33% down in 24 hours. So, I mean, Samsung's One UI is pretty good at battery optimization, so no complaints there. Where there is a complaint is in the charging department. It supports 15 watts fast charging. How much time does it take to charge from 0 to 100? 160 minutes. I couldn't get it to drain completely, so I did not test the charging times, but even by Samsung's own words, it takes 2 hours and 40 minutes, and that's fast charging? No way. Now, for context, the Poco X3 also has a 6000 mAh battery, and it comes with a 33 watt fast charger, and it can charge from 0 to 100 in just 1 hour 15 minutes. That's twice as fast as or half as slow as the F41. Now, so far, whatever we've seen, it's all pretty much the same as what you find on the M21. There's absolutely no difference, in fact. Even the dimensions are pretty much the same. I think you can even use the same case if you've got a case for the M21. The point is, there's a lot of similarities, but there's one huge upgrade they've done from the M21. We've got a 64 megapixel f1.8 camera on this. That's the main camera. Apart from that, we've also got an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera and a 5 megapixel depth sensor. Samsung has been providing 5 megapixel macro cameras on some phones, so I wish they included that on this phone, but instead we get a useless depth sensor. And on the front, again, there's a bit of an upgrade. It's 32 megapixels instead of 20 megapixels. So in the little time I had, I managed to click some pictures, mostly in daytime under good lighting conditions, and here are some of those sample pictures. Have a look at them, let me know in the comment section what you feel. I personally feel these images are pretty good. Samsung has really improved the image processing. The color reproduction is a lot better than it used to be. Remember those days when images from Samsung phones used to turn out oversaturated? So that's not the case anymore since the introduction of I think the M30s. I think that's the turning point. Now, the camera app is the usual affair. You've got the photo mode, the video mode, live focus, and once you tap on more, you also get more options like night mode, pro mode, super slow-mo, and slow motion. However, I think the Pro mode is just, it's not a full-fledged Pro mode. You cannot adjust the shutter speed, which is kind of the most important thing when it comes to Pro mode. One thing that I noticed on this phone is that once you open the camera app for the first time, the app actually prompts you to use the 64 megapixels. On some previous Samsung phones, the 64 megapixel or the 48 megapixel, whatever the high resolution is, that mode was kind of hard to find. You need to tap here, and here it says 3:4, 64 megapixels, but on most other Samsung phones that came before this, you can only see 3:4H, and you have to guess that it's high resolution. That was kind of funny, and it was overlooked by a lot of people. So this is a welcome move. Now, Samsung also promised that certain features will be enabled through a software update, like the single take feature, which means it can capture images using both the front and the rear cameras at the same time, and then front rear switch in video. So while capturing a video using the rear camera, you can switch to the front camera as well, like while recording. So that's another thing. Auto switching to wide angle in selfies. Now, this is what I received, but I'm not exactly sure what that means. Probably if you're taking a selfie and there are like too many people, it will automatically switch to the wide angle mode. They've also promised a night hyperlapse and some custom filters. So a bunch of nice, neat features which will be enabled via software update. So that's pretty much it. Let's now try to address that one thing that we discussed in the beginning. Why does the F41 exist? Why does this series exist? Is there any major differentiating factor? Let me talk about the price first. The F41, the 6GB RAM 64GB storage variant costs 17,000 rupees. The 6GB RAM 128GB variant costs 18,000 rupees. And as a special offer, for the Big Billion Day sale, I think they are introducing this phone at 15,500 for the 64GB variant. But let's take other phones in the same price segment, like other Samsung phones. Let's not even talk about other phones for now. The M21 464 variant is available at 14,000 rupees. Even considering the F41's promotional offer price, which is 16,500, the M21, the same variant, costs 500 rupees cheaper. And what does this phone have that the M21 doesn't? Not much actually. This has a 64 megapixel main camera and a 32 megapixel front camera. That's pretty much it. Like I said, the same body, the same Gorilla Glass 3, same Full HD Plus display, Super AMOLED panel, 6000 mAh battery, 15 watt fast charging, everything is the same. So I guess if you really want to get a Samsung phone, instead of buying the M21, you can get the F41 if you're in a hurry. Otherwise, I'd like to ask you to wait and watch some reviews before buying the phone. But at its regular price of 18,000 rupees for the 6128 variant, personally, I would spend another 1,500 on the M31S. It's 19,500 rupees. It has a better ultra-wide angle camera. It's got the same 6000 mAh battery, but 25 watt fast charging. A slightly larger display, 6.5 inches instead of 6.4. Support for reverse charging. A 5 megapixel macro camera, and a side-mounted fingerprint scanner. Of course, that may or may not be an advantage according to your preference. But yeah, these are the differences, and I personally feel that it's worth spending 1,500 more, especially for the support for 25 watt fast charging. Okay, now, you don't want to spend 1,500 more. You still want to get a Samsung phone. What do? But at the same time, you don't want the M21's 48 megapixel camera. You want a 64 megapixel camera. Well, there is another Samsung phone with the exact requirements that you were asking for. It's the Galaxy M31, which came before the M31S. Yes, it's got the exact same specifications as the F41. The only difference is the M31 has a 5 megapixel macro camera in addition to the same set of cameras you find on the F41. So yes, almost identical, except for the fact that the M31 has an additional camera, a 5 megapixel macro camera. But the funny part is the M31 is cheaper than the F41. So coming back to the original question, what does that F mean in F41? FOMO? Fear of missing out a Big Billion Day sale, because a lot of other phones have a lot of hype, like the Poco X3, Realme 7, 7 Pro, etc. So Samsung doesn't want to feel left out. So is that it? FOMO? Freaking out? Fusion? Okay, I think it's fusion. What fusion, you ask? Confusion. But why do they have full on the wallpaper? I'm just full on confused. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Take care. Subscribe and hit the bell icon if you enjoyed watching the video. I'm sweating like anything. This is not how I expected Chennai weather to be. My bad. It just rained, so I thought it would be great if I shoot outside. Anyway, thanks for watching. Take care and bye.